Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Myers Park Baptist Church for this special event this morning, special forum here. We haven't had many forums at 9 a.m. in a while, so we're glad that you're able to get up this morning and be here with us. Want to apologize that we advertised, as Tony mentioned to me, we advertised a light breakfast this morning. And by light, we mean real light. There's a few muffins over there that David Zizo provided. We hope you'll grab a muffin, but that's it. So we apologize to you on that. If you were looking for something a little bit heavier, we don't have it for you this morning. So we apologize to you about that. But we've got a great program in spite of that, and I want to introduce our speaker this morning. It is a joy for me to introduce to you this morning a person who is no stranger to our congregation, having preached here and led retreats here on multiple occasions, my fellow Duke Divinity School classmate and good friend for over 20 years, the Reverend J. Dana Trent. Dana is an author, teacher, a minister, a full-time humanities faculty at Wake Tech Community College in Raleigh, North Carolina. She was born in Los Angeles and then moved to the aptly named town of Dana, Indiana as an infant, and she's going to tell you a lot more about that story this morning, which is going to be very intriguing and interesting. Later, she moved to Reidsville, North Carolina, and she's a graduate of Salem College and Duke Divinity School. After graduating from Duke at the age of 25, Dana served as a UNC Health Intensive Care resident chaplain, where she worked with terminal patients and bore witness to over 200 deaths in 1 year. She is the author of now 5 books: Saffron Cross, the unlikely story of how a Christian minister married a Hindu monk. And that Hindu monk is here with us. Fred, welcome, Fred. Glad to have you with us. For Sabbath's Sake, Embracing Your Need for Rest, Worship, and Community. One Breath at a Time, A Skeptic's Guide to Christian Meditation. Dessert First, Preparing for Death While Savoring Life. And her debut trade memoir from Penguin Random House, Between Two Trailers, which received a starred review from Library Journal. Publishers Weekly compared Dana's work to Jeanette Walls and Tara Westover, and Kirkus Reviews calls it a powerfully intimate look into the struggles of American poverty and mental illness. We are so excited about her success and this new memoir that she's going to talk about today, and thrilled to hear from her this morning. Please join me in welcoming the Reverend J. Dana Trent.
Gracious introduction. God love you.
Yeah,
Thank you. What a gracious introduction. Thank you, Dr. Boswell. So sweet. It is a joy to be with y'all. Dr. Boswell is much taller than me, and so if I look a little precarious, this is why, and I can always move around. All right, friends, how are you this morning? Oh, that was pitiful. How are you doing this morning? Good. I know it's 9 a.m. and it's early for y'all, right? We haven't done an early session in a long time. So I'm going to wake us up and get us started. Before I do that, I do need to do just one little announcement that Ben and Fred and Caroline gave me right before we started. And that is, we do have copies of Between Two Trailers, but we can only log in for the payment system for Park Roads on Caroline's phone. And Caroline has to leave at 11:15. So we'll make sure that y'all get books before Caroline leaves, okay? That was the announcement, right? We had to make, okay, perfect. All right, and Fred can ping me at the end to remind me of that too. Okay, so amazed that you are here on this early morning, this Mother's Day, and I've got homework for you already. Are you ready? Okay, so here's what I want you to do. Please turn to your neighbor and tell them what home means to you, okay? You can introduce yourself if you don't know your neighbor. You can move around if you need to wake up and get some coffee. What does home mean to you? 1 minute. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go. What does home mean to you? All right, 30 seconds, 30 seconds. Ten seconds. Okay, my friends, I cannot wait to hear these answers. All right, I'm going to put Ben and Emily on the spot first. All right, what did y'all share? What does home mean to you? Oh, yeah, thank you.
Hear me? Ooh, hello. So I said that home is internal to me, so I carry it with me wherever I go, and I can seek out what I need to feel at home when I go places that aren't traditional home, like seeking out friends or loved ones or being by myself. Like I find it internally.
Carry it with us.
I think we said we kind of had the same answer, but we came at it from different places. For me, home is other people. And I think that comes from being an extrovert and being really relational. And so, but then we were also talking about how when you're kind of connecting with other people, you're also connecting with the truth of yourself and the home inside yourself, and vice versa. So, yeah.
Well. Okay. So home is other people, connecting with yourself, community, we might say too. Mm-hmm. Good, excellent. All right, and then we'll move to this side of the room. And if you want to shout it out, I can repeat it too for you. This side of the room, what does home mean to you? One word, one phrase. Yeah, Emily, that'd be great. One word, one phrase. Family. Family. Excellent. All right, what else? Myers Park Baptist Church. Praise the Lord. Did you hear that, Dr. Boswell?
I heard that.
Okay, good. Mm-hmm.
Refuge.
Refuge. Thank you. Praise the Lord. Complicated. We're going to come back to that. Tell me your name. Sandy said complicated.
I'm at home when where I am is consistent with who I am.
I'm at home when where I am is consistent with who I am. Oh, beautiful. These are great answers. So home is inside of us. We carry it with us. Home is in community. Home is at church, right? Home might have a feeling of warmth or comfort or consistency or security or an integration of sorts. Also, we heard from Sandy that home is complicated. Thank you, Sandy. It's all those things. And as church folk, one of our main jobs is to walk into any room and to keep our antenna up for the ways in which home means something different to everyone. Everyone has a different experience of home. So I want to introduce you to my first home. All of our first homes are in a mother's womb. If you think about it like that, right? Every person sitting in this room had a very first home of a mother's womb. Happy Mother's Day. Praise the Lord. I want you to meet my first home. This is the lady. This is my mother, Judy Trent. She was a Southern polite debutante raised on a tobacco farm in Reidsville, North Carolina. Her daddy kept her dressed in the finest dresses and furs from Montaldo's dress shop in Greensboro, North Carolina. She had a monthly budget for her wardrobe, and she could go over each month and spend as much as she wanted to ensure that she always looked pristine, gaunt, porcelain, and dripping with diamonds. So the lady was the baby of 5 children, and she was what her siblings politely referred to as spoiled rotten. Her father was able to provide this Montaldo's dress shop budget because he ran lots of businesses, construction, farming, and ... an illegal slot machine business in the 1940s and 50s when you could not do that. He ran it under the auspices of a record shop and traded the slot machines in the back. So the lady was the baby of 5, had a very close relationship with her father, and the last thing he ever said to her when she was 19 was, "Bye, baby, I love you." And then he went into the family's black and white tile bathroom and shot himself with his favorite revolver. And the lady at age 19 was never the same. That suicide impacted her so much that it made her essentially unwell, complicated for the rest of her life. So the lady's favorite thing to say was, "A smile to all she greets, a charm to make each memory sweet." So she carried that persona of polite and nothing's wrong and everything's fine her entire life. Because in her world, what was outward facing was much more important than what was going on inside the reality. So the lady, after several hospitalizations inpatient at Duke University Hospital, after suicide attempt after suicide attempt after suicide attempt, decided that she, if the Lord would make her well enough, decided to go to nursing school. And she became a psychiatric nurse. She, in 1977, met this gentleman on a locked inpatient ward in Cincinnati, Ohio. She was a psychiatric nurse at the time. We always have to say at the time because she had been on what she called the inside. And he, the king, my father, was a recreational therapist working at that time too. The king was a diagnosed schizophrenic. My mother diagnosed with several personality disorders. So when they met at this inpatient lock facility in Cincinnati, Ohio in 1977, even their sickest, most unwell patients took them aside and said, "This is a match that is going to end in madness." And you know that when even your sickest patients are more attuned to what's going on than you are as their helpers, that the match is bound to end in combustion. So the king was schizophrenic, and you could always tell which persona he was occupying by what he was wearing and what he was saying and the pitch of his voice. So that very first picture is sort of the time when he had his schizophrenic break. He failed a couple of classes, and his parents sent him to Culver Military Academy in Indiana, which is known for its intensity. So, Dad was in charge of the horses, and he killed a colonel's favorite horse by purposefully running it to death. The colonel issued a kill order for my father, and he hid out in the Naval Brigade until someone could come rescue him. That was the start of his unwellness. Then he cycled through various personas, including Orthodox rabbi, which is the one that is second from the right. But his favorite persona was cult leader at Indiana State University. ISU's claim to fame, y'all are too young to remember, is Larry Bird. I know y'all don't know who Larry Bird is. Who's that, right? The king was a cult leader at ISU. And so every day at ISU, he would have a gaggle of 10 or 12, to be biblical, disciples following him around campus, and he held meetings in the third floor stacks of the library at ISU. He wore a uniform every day and carried a briefcase, and no one knew the contents of that briefcase. He drove a hearse and charged his disciples $1 to ride in that hearse up and down Wabash Avenue. And the commandment was, if you were riding in the hearse, you were commanded to roll down the windows and show your rear end. Now, I imagine you have not lived until you've seen a rear end sticking out of a hearse. What do you think? Yeah? So I've painted a picture for you of these two cats, all right? This is my father's drug trafficking persona, which we'll look at in just a minute. So while the lady said, "A smile to all she greets, a charm to make each memory sweet," the king had a motto like this. He would draw his keys from his pocket and jingle them in front of anyone's face and say, the only difference between us and them is who's got the keys. And what he meant by that is that there is a fine line between wellness and unwellness. There's a fine line between the oppressor and the oppressed. And for him, as someone who had been on the other side of a locked facility, including the military brig, if you know anything about brigs, it's a prison, he knew that at any time he could be one day the one locking a patient in and the next day the one locked in. So when the two of them met, you can imagine this relationship was about as guaranteed as a newspaper horoscope. So the lady liked to self-medicate, and the king liked to self-medicate as well. So when they went broke in LA, after they had followed a TV preacher named Dr. Robert Schuller, I know y'all are too young to remember Dr. Schuller. They followed him after their patients said to them, you know, this match is going to be a disaster. And they said, well, we'll show you. And they quit those psychiatric jobs and packed a U-Haul for LA to sit and worship at the feet of Dr. Schuller. That went fairly well. They got a baby. My mother was 41 when I was born, but they went broke. And when they headed back towards Western Indiana, broke and jobless, they needed to self-medicate and they needed to do it consistently. So they started a drug trafficking business under the auspices of a kiddie ride enterprise. Now, kiddie rides are the hydraulic ponies that you see out in front of the Kmart and the Walmart. If you've taken a closer look at kiddie rides and tapped them on their fiberglass carcasses, you will realize that they are hollow on the inside. They are the perfect way, were the perfect way, to move drugs in the veins and arteries of the United States. And so, for several years, we lived between two trailers and moved these drugs across the U.S. Now, this is the day and time before 24/7 surveillance. I would not recommend it today. But my father always did have a really good piece of advice for anyone, and that is don't ever commit two crimes at once. So there's your tip of the day as you're heading out to Mother's Day lunch. Now, my parents were very faithful people. They loved Dr. Schuller. They ran the drug business as a religion. There were rules like the one I just said to you. There were rituals like smearing Vaseline on our limbs so that we could win any knife fights. If you're a boxer or ever boxed, you know how much this helps, especially on your face. So my parents believed in Jesus, and they believed that Jesus was the answer to their problems. And they believed that Jesus had sent them this business so that they could live, and they could have rituals and rules and a hierarchy, and they could make it in this really scary, gritty place known as Western Indiana, Vermilion County, where literally the county's motto is, if you want to kill someone, you do it in Vermilion County. This is my home county, which is home to several serial killers and all kinds of gruesome and grisly acts. So, my parents started this business, but then they realized faith doesn't fill a refrigerator. So, they needed a lookout to step up their game, and that was me. I'm going to read you a short excerpt, and then we'll open it up here in a second for questions. So they moved back to Western Indiana with me in tow, and I was a little bit of a problem child. No surprise there, right? So at age 4, I was expelled from preschool from peeling paint off the walls because I had been put in timeout for leading a nap time coup to The Heat Is On, which was the theme song from Beverly Hills Cop. So this is a little excerpt about when I got home from preschool. All right, here we go. Kids make the best hustlers, King told me after I was expelled from preschool. He lifted me onto the kitchen counter of that single wide and coated his arms with palms full of petroleum jelly from the biggest Vaseline tubs that Walmart sold. Then he greased up mine. No one expects a runt in a Looney Tunes shirt to shank you, he explained. Budgie, he said, and pointed to my chest, then sealed my street name with a Vaseline cross to my forehead. Budgie, I parroted back, finger to my own chest. I was 36 when I learned that a budgie is a parakeet. They are as skilled at call and response as larger parrots, perfectly mimicking their owner's vocabulary and syntax. At age 4, if I was going to help him sling drugs, he needed me first to be a canary in the coal mine, and second, to copy his every move. Guns are for idiots, he said. Here. He handed me my first pocket knife and razor blade. The pocket knife was a fold-out 2-inch blade with a horse and buggy painted on the handle. Knives teach you to accept the inevitable, he said. You'll get stabbed. No big deal. You'll survive. Besides, that's what the Vaseline was for. An enemy's grip, punches, and knife points would slip right off, and I'd be ready. So, at age 4, I was recruited into this business with these two very unconventional and Sandy complicated people who wanted very different things for their daughter. My mother wanted a polite Southern debutante, Reverend daughter. She started calling me Revy when I was very small. And my father wanted a gritty Midwestern preschool drug dealer who would be the heir to his kingdom of carnival captivations, his drug business. So that started the push and pull between the two of them, not only the dynamics of illegal businesses and illicit behavior, but more importantly for me, it was the constant push and pull of being a midfielder between two parents with two very complicated pasts and illnesses. And then ultimately, it was about being torn between two states, two cultures, and two very, very, very different ways of being and moving in the world. My parents had a lot of empathy for other people because they were wounded healers, but they had zero empathy for each other, which meant that home was always very complicated. In that trailer, the second one of between two trailers, it was a single wide that looked like a shotgun house. How many of you are familiar with a shotgun house? Good, okay. It means that if any of your enemies spent 12-gauge buckshot through the front window, everyone would go down like dominoes. And we had many, many enemies. And so my father would preach from that kitchen counter full of drugs, and I would sit on top of that counter, and he would yell back to my mother, "You're crazy," and she would yell back, "It takes one to know one." And they ran around that tree all day. My mother in bed at the back of the trailer, guarding all of our inventory, floor-to-ceiling stacks of drugs, and my father in the front, preaching and watching Dr. Schuler and casting what he called visions, which were visions of what my life would be like. So home was always a little bizarre, to say the least. So where do we go from here? Sandy, it's like you read my lesson plans and my sermon. I'm very happy about this. We say, blessed are the complicated hearts, blessed are the complicated homes. But in all seriousness, the church is where we are safe. Ben and I were talking about this last night with Lucy and Fred. The church is where we should feel safe and brave to have conversations about complicated homes and healing and trauma. Because raise your hand if you've ever had any sort of trauma in your own life or in your family. Raise your hand. Yes, absolutely. 64% of Americans have at least one adverse childhood experience. ACEs come in neglect, abuse, and violence. The most common adverse childhood experience from 0 to 17 is divorce. And you may say, well, my divorce wasn't that bad. Well, it's any situation, abrupt or chronic, that causes any sort of shift in emotional or physical well-being for children. So that's 64% of Americans. That's a lot. And so the church is a place where we can talk about how do we repair from hurt? And if we don't have hurt in ourselves, I know we have hurts in our families. I know we have hurts in the church community. And so this is our place where we get to ask those tough questions. How do we heal? How do we repair? How do we become well? How do we go home? Especially if home was complicated. And so I'm going to open it up in just a second for some questions, and then we'll close with a final reading about these themes. And what I'd love for you to do before we go to questions is just turn to your neighbor, turn to your table, and share 1 minute, one takeaway, or anything that bubbled up for you during this talk and story. Okay, you ready? 1, 2, 3, go. 1 minute. And what bubbled up for you? And we can just shout it out and I'll repeat it. What bubbled up for you? Anything bubble up? Ha! I've said that to you this morning. You have. You're so gracious. Well, how do people close the gap? Okay, we'll come. That's good. That's a good. We'll come right back to that. Help me remember, y'all. Okay. What else? Say it again, sweetheart. Ooh, brothers fighting each other. Ooh, no fun, right? How many of you have siblings? Raise your hand. Ooh, gracious. How many of you are the youngest? Raise your hand. Okay. How many of you are the middle children? I want to see you, middle children. Yes. Always doing their own thing. I love it. And the peacekeepers. Well done. All right. So siblings. Siblings. Complicated siblings, right? We love them, but they're complicated.
The impact of death in your family.
Ooh.
Sudden death that you've been affected.
The impact of sudden death that you, yeah. So sudden loss, sudden grief, yeah. How do we heal from that? Because there are no regret, for me, regret is the sharpest emotion because there are no takebacks in this lifetime, right? That's hard, yeah. So sudden death, what else?
The fact that religion was such a central aspect during your trauma,
Yeah.
during that childhood, that you still carried on with it, even though it might have shifted, but it stayed a central part of your life.
Yes, that's perfect. Yeah, because it comes right to Anne's question. Yeah. It's faith. It's faith. That sounds so cheesy. In Baptist Sunday school, they always teach us that when in doubt, the answer is always Jesus, right? But it is, like, how do you survive from sudden loss or complicated siblings? And for me, faith was always a through line. But I'm not like y'all know, I feel safe saying this in this space. I was absent from Sunday school the day they handed out the lessons on evangelism and discipleship, right? And so I've always kind of walked through the world like this when it comes to faith, of being open and just cupping my hands, just wanting more and more, and show me, so that I can make it through. And so a specific example of making it through, whether it's loss or coping with siblings or thinking about this faith through line, is a daily practice that is rooted in faith for me, meditation, prayer, listening to scripture, but also balancing that with the real talk, the real realities of evidence-based modalities of grief counseling, right, and talk therapy, and CBT, cognitive behavioral tools, and all the things that help us heal and recover from trauma. But I think for me, the faith has been an important aspect because one of the first places I ever saw adults being adults was at church. I could not believe that people who were taller than me, right, always taller, got up and got dressed and acted like they were somebody and came to church and actually cared for children in such a way that children could be children. Children could play and the adults were watching us, right? Church was the first time I ever saw that in my entire life. And so church became a place of home for me. And that is the miracle. That is how I closed the gap. Angels, church folk, God, faith, grace, mercy, all the things, love, community, going full circle to what we started with. Thank you, Dr. Boswell. It's the idea that we can find healing with each other. Dr. Vivek Murthy is your Surgeon General. Did you know that? You have a Surgeon General. He's brilliant. He declared 1 year ago, that Americans are suffering from what he called an epidemic of loneliness. Pandemic, all the things, right? And loneliness often makes us double down on these trauma responses because we're in our head and it's hard for us to get out of our heads. And so we double down on the loneliness and isolation, and then it just starts this vicious cycle again. Do you know what he said the cure for this is? The cure. Do you know what he said? The cure is a culture of connection. That is the cure for loneliness. And guess what? In the Christian tradition, in our tradition, Jesus is the original establisher of the culture of connection. Praise the Lord, right? So, I'm going to wrap up here as we kind of go full circle with home, and of course we had to have Jesus because Jesus is always the answer. And trauma, and how do we heal? We heal in community. We heal by doing the work. We heal by making it a practice every single day and knowing that it's not one and done, ever. But it's a choice every day. You wake up and you choose either bitterness or joy. And so most days I try to choose joy, but Fred would probably say, Lord have mercy. It's probably only 25% of the time. All right, I'm going to read a short summary and then we could open it up for a few more questions and we'll connect with Caroline before worship time. Okay, perfect. Okay. I realize now that the danger of my drug trafficking childhood wasn't the weapons or the fight training or even the drug business. It wasn't King's schizophrenic psychosis or the lady's personality disorders. The real danger was denying what happened between two trailers. The real danger was in not accepting my parents for who they were, mental illness and addiction and poverty and all. The real danger was in not realizing that they were doing the very best they could with what they had. The real danger was hiding it all. The real danger was denying that it was complicated. Maybe King was right. You can't fix crazy. Or better yet, maybe you don't need to, because trying to means that you spend your entire life thinking you are adrift, which leaves you secretive, ashamed, isolated, confused, wandering, lonely, as Budgie or Revy, depending on the day, when in fact you are really both. Home, it turns out, was there all along in my two very loving and very unconventional yet faithful parents who believed in miracles. I am their miracle. I am their legacy. They are my home. Home, it turns out, is where the war is, but it's also where the healing begins. Amen? Amen. Oh, bless y'all. So we will open it up for questions if you have any, and then Caroline is here somewhere. Is Caroline here? Oh, perfect. Oh, great. Oh, wonderful. Awesome. So a quick note, remember Caroline has to scoot at 11:15 right after worship. And so the books are available. I'm starting to do book clubs this week. This is the last week of tour, and I'm doing my first book club. I love coming to book clubs. So come, please invite me. I'm inviting myself. That's rude, and my mother would be so upset about that. But I'm inviting myself to your book club. So please support Park Road. Park Road is your roads, or plural? Park, got it, Park Road Books. Please support them. They are your local independent bookstore, and they've sent us plenty of copies. So grab one for you and 2 friends or your book club, and Caroline can assist with that, okay? And then most of all, please keep in touch. Y'all will see me again running my mouth at 10 a.m. for the sermon, but I want to keep in touch afterward too. Ann and Rex in particular, I've kept in touch with them for years and years and years, and it's so wonderful to have Myers Park friends here. So thank you both. And then Emily and I went to Salem College, Emily Way, went to Salem College together, and so this is a very happy reunion as well. All right, my friends, go grab Between Two Trailers from Caroline. I'll be here to answer a few questions, and then we're going to scoot to worship. All right? Thank you all so much for having me. Thank you. Sure.
Are we going to have another retreat with Dana running the show?
Oh my God. Thank you. Oh, yes.
It was fabulous, and I hope everybody in this room would go to the retreat.
Thank
She
you.
is phenomenal.
Gosh.
So I hope we'll do that. Please.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. I so appreciate that. Thank you. Thanks, y'all. Blessings upon you. Happy Mother's Day. And I'll be around before worship. Okay. Bless you all. Thank you so